Okay, welcome back to the Veterans in Politics Municipal Endorsement Interviews 2019. Up next, we do have our Henderson Municipal Court Judge, Department 1. And by the way, we did invite all these candidates, and Mr. Judge Mark Stevens did show up, so thank you for being here. So what I'm going to give you is a 2-minute opening to tell people your bio.
Well, they say you have to say your name several times when you're out campaigning. So my name's Mark Stevens. I started off in the Marine Corps as a JAG, as a company commander. I was a defense attorney primarily, but I was also a company commander, which was an awesome start to a legal career. And when I got out, I was a police officer during the day, or during the night, and an attorney during the day. I also then switched over to prosecuting at the city of Henderson. I was a prosecutor for 7 years. In fact, my judge that I appeared in front of primarily was a Marine veteran from Vietnam who unfortunately passed away from Agent Orange issues. And then after that, when he was retiring, then I took the bench and been there for 12 years. I guess the most rewarding thing I do every day as a judge right now is head Veterans Treatment Court, which is for those veterans that come back with PTSD, other mental health issues, and addiction issues. They've gotten in trouble, and then the other courts or other departments refer them to my court on Thursday afternoons. And it's extremely rewarding to see these individuals turn their lives around. We have 147 graduates now from the program, and we have a very low recidivism rate. It's by far the best thing I do.
Again, we thank you. So we're going to have our panelists repeat your name and ask your question. So who's up on our panel list?
Frank Switzer, family court activist. Your Honor, 67% of the constituents in Nevada support the death penalty. Right now we have 80 plus inmates on the death penalty. Cases where it's not used is $1.3 million per case. Cases where it's used is $1 million with an average saving of $250,000. Times the 80 inmates we have on it would save $20 million towards taxpayers. Do you support the death penalty?
That's a good question. My first cousin, who I grew up with, played football, wrestled, been friends with, hung out all the time. He was murdered in La Jolla, California, and the issue of death penalty came up. And I'm not saying the death penalty, certainly the death penalty in cases, it has a specific deterrent. That person isn't going to commit that offense again. I don't know the efficacy with regard to general deterrent, but I do know as a victim how the family felt and felt that it was appropriate based on what was done. And the individual, one of the individuals now is at a retrial and ultimately has been released from custody. And as a family member who spoke out, it's not such a pleasant feeling to have someone out there that committed murder was a friend of my first cousin, and not knowing whether she would do something to attack me or other family members. So it's always a tough decision, and obviously that's not in my position, isn't something that I deal with. Just misdemeanors, but I'm not opposed to the death penalty in the right situation. I'll abide by whatever our Supreme Court and the legislature dictates.
Hi, Judge.
Good morning.
Lena Ocasio. A question regarding domestic violence. Since you are in the municipal court in Henderson, how do you feel feel and how do you sentence offenders of domestic violence, even if it is a first offense?
It really depends on their background, their acts of violence, if they have those in their history, the extent of the domestic battery, how that, the injuries received and the actions taken. Obviously, there's minimum sentencing requirements on domestic battery if they're found guilty. I can only give them up to 6 months jail in municipal court. So it really depends. I have no problem giving maximum if the facts warrant it, or minimum if the facts warrant that. I guess before I became a judge, I was on the board of directors for Steakhouse, and so, and the judge before me, he and his wife started Steakhouse, and so obviously I know it's an issue. Listen to the facts and make a decision.
Kaine, Marzola, thank you for your service to us.
Same to you.
Now being with the Veteran Courts Treatment Center, as far as rehabilitation, have you seen the correlation between veterans getting in trouble and also being medicated on either antidepressants or opiates? And if so, what are you doing in your program to ensure that these veterans are being medicated on healthier options versus medications that are kind of prescribed to them from VA?
Good question. And I would say it was a much worse problem a couple of years ago than what we're facing right now with the opioids. But yeah, we have many of them. They have PTSD or other mental health issues, and a lot of them self-medicate, or they've been prescribed opioids through the VA or other sources. And nobody graduates from Veterans Treatment Court on opioids. It might sound harsh, but it's not a long-term way to handle pain, in my opinion. We have to come up with other options so that they, we've seen somebody's dying from cancer, I understand. But if you have a 25-year-old veteran in front of you, opioids aren't going to be the answer for the next 50 years or so of their life. So, as I indicated, there's no alcohol, no controlled substances allowed in the program. So we have everything from service dogs to physical fitness to even acupuncture, physical therapy, and so there's no one size fits all. We make sure that we try different options and we're open to different options so that people just can get back on their feet. But and pain's a real thing. It's not that we believe there needs to be something done that alleviates the pain. But obviously, I don't think opioids are the answer all the time.
Good morning, Judge. Thank you. My name is John Maracich. Thank you for your service. Hoorah. Yeah, we had a moment. As a judge, right, having been in the system on the family court side, and researching a lot of things having to do with relationships and how they enter the courtroom afterwards, considering domestic violence. Do you have any mindful attitude towards predispositioning a case or prejudging a case based on what parties giving you their opinion of the situation at hand? Like, do you lean more towards women because they're the smaller, weaker creature, or you look at a man because he's bigger, stronger, dominant? There seems to be a gap where men get prosecuted or treated unfairly because they're just men. And courts usually favor women in most situations like that. Do you have any awareness of that, and does it impact you in your court system?
Men and women, either one can commit domestic battery. You have to just evaluate the facts as they come out. But gender doesn't determine whether someone did or did not commit domestic battery. So I don't have any predisposition to that. When I was a police officer, I arrested women as domestic battery. It's a pretty tough law, and it's simple throwing water on someone can constitute a domestic battery based on Supreme Court ruling we've had. So the facts really determine what's going to happen, and not gender.
Oh, eating hearsay. I don't know, I think you asked the question.
And hearsay can't come in unless there's some exception to the hearsay rule, so it's significantly different than the family court, where I think the rules of evidence are more lax. Hearsay doesn't come in criminal cases unless there's an exception to that hearsay rule.
Good morning, Judge.
Good morning.
John Moore, former Nevada Senator. Thank you for everything you do with the Veterans Court. Really a big supporter of that, and I think that I would like to see that expanded throughout the state. It's just a great thing for us, for veterans. You touched on a subject on minimum sentencing. Do you support minimum sentencing, and do you think that you as a judge should be allowed to have discretion in your sentencing of defendants? You know, where the law says you have to sentence someone to a minimum sentence versus your own opinion once you have the defendant in front of you and you hear the facts and that.
Discretion, I think, is important for judges, especially in sentencing, because not all DUIs or all domestic batteries are created equal. Some are far less offensive than others. Maybe two brothers, a pushing and shoving incident, that's not the same as a spouse beating up another spouse. So it can result in harsh results because they take away a lot of that discretion. So I do have some concerns with when legislatures taking away a lot of discretion. I think maybe they don't trust us judges that will make the right decision based on the facts. But there's always that push to take away some of our discretion. You mentioned the Veterans Treatment Court, I'd like to see it expanded. I will say that a couple of years ago, the legislature did change it so that now we can transfer jurisdictions. So I get some cases from Justice Court, felony cases from different areas, and we can transfer those to Veterans Treatment Court, which has been helpful. So.
Good morning, Judge Stephens.
Good morning.
First of all, thank you very much for your service. Second of all, I have one or two questions for you, sir. You know, with judges that are dealing with criminal and civil litigation, first of all, my name is Robert Medoff. I'm a retired criminal court psychologist. With judges that are dealing with criminal and civil litigation, it's basically rules of law, evidence, and exhibits. The question I have for you is with family issues, family court, because this is a specific type of courtroom situation where what I've experienced with family court on Pecos Avenue, Las Vegas Family Court, that most of the judges aren't really trained. I'll give you an example of a judge that's currently sitting and has been sitting for a number of years. She was a civil litigator for a number of years. She worked 9 days at the North Las Vegas till she was fired. And then she became a lead attorney for a vitamin company in Henderson. And I guess one day, like Jethro and Beverly Hillbillies, she decided to, hey, I'm going to become a family court judge. She has no formal training, and this is just one judge. There's numerous judges at the family court. There should be some sort of in-depth training on family issues and concerns, because when you're dealing with children, and it's such a sensitive and emotional issue, and if you're not properly trained in terms of deciding an outcome, there could be a lot of repercussions, and you know, Mr. Sanson can contest to that. What do you feel that there should be training with family court judges specifically? And I'm not talking about a week course, but possibly a 6-month or a year course.
Good question. Obviously, I don't deal with family law issues, and quite frankly, I would never want to. It's just criminal cases are far less emotional and is draining than family court cases. But with that being said, I think maybe it goes to educating the public as to who's running in elections as well, so that they know what this person's background is, their knowledge in the subject, and their training. Now, that might be easier said than done, but I think that is part of the issue. But for at least for my court, you end up going to 3 weeks of training up in Reno at the Judicial College, and they cover a wide variety of issues, but I don't know that that's sufficient. It certainly wouldn't be sufficient for me to become a family court judge, I know that. My opponent, my understanding, is a family court, or does family law, and has a law firm that does family law. So she might be one that's better to answer that question. I don't know that my opponent's done criminal law, but family law. I would never want to be a family law lawyer, or a judge or a lawyer, or a litigant, definitely. You know, I've been through divorce myself a number of years ago, and it's not nobody enjoys their time there. I think everybody walks out feeling upset. But obviously, for any judges, I think we need training, and we should be going to training to get more information.
Good morning, Judge Stevens, Christina Ortiz, but we know each other.
We do.
So, it's been talked a lot this morning about the crime in Henderson and how it's raised and how Henderson is not a safe place to be anymore. As a judge, and a former cop, do you believe that we should have more police capita? And what does that look like for you in the courtroom?
Well, I just take the cases that come in front of me, and whether it's more or less, I guess if it's less, as long as law enforcement is doing their job and preventing crime. I know the current chief of police has taken a lot of officers out of specialty units and put them on the streets. And so I think the cases have increased, but I think that's because they're actually apprehending more of the folks committing crimes or allegedly committing crimes. So I don't know that crime has gone up, certainly in the last year necessarily as a percentage, but there are more arrests. Like say, for example, DUIs. A lot of times the only DUIs arrests that take place are those that had an accident, and so then they're arrested. When you have more officers on the street, then they're more likely to be proactive in getting DUIs off the street. So basically, I think always having more cops means there's going to be hopefully less crime, but also more cops means there's going to be more arrests because they're going to have more time. They're not going to be running from report call to another report. They're going to be proactive in stopping some of the things and arresting.
Everybody had a chance to ask the questions. So this will conclude the Veterans in Politics Municipal endorsement, but before we go, we want to give you a chance to tell voters why they want to vote for you. So I'll give you 2 minutes if you like.
So I think I certainly have the experience necessary, and quite frankly, over the 12 years, I think I've become a better judge. In part because of Veterans Treatment Court, also because I think as a judge, it's easy to become jaded. If you think everybody in front of you is going to keep coming back in front of you, but it's nice when you do Veterans Treatment Court and you see individuals who are really suffering and having major issues, and you see them change and their lives change, I think it makes you realize that facts and circumstances sometimes lead to issues. I really hope that I'm afforded the opportunity to continue with Veterans Treatment Court. Like I said, we've had 47 graduates, and the success rate has been pretty amazing. Last numbers I've heard is that we're just over 6% recidivism. And high risk, high needs individuals like this, normally you're looking at 75–80% recidivism, meaning they reoffend. And we're at over 6%. By the way, the Veterans Treatment Court was a big team effort. I get to wear the black dress up there, but we got a great team that makes it work. Mentors who volunteer their time as veterans to mentor individuals. I have 4 defense attorneys that are all veterans that volunteer their time to help all these individuals. So it's just a huge team effort. I really hope that we continue to expand the program and improve the program and afford that opportunity. So anyway, I hope you all have a great rest of your weekend. 75.
Thank you, Judge. And again, this is Veterans in Politics, the endorsements of the municipal, and this is Henderson Municipal Court Judge District, or Department 1, and this was Judge Mark Stevens. And again, we did invite other candidates, and they did not show. Again, thank you so much, and have a wonderful day. Give them a round of applause.